What should I do when controversial topics are raised? Hi, I'm Louise from OTGrow. Welcome to our YouTube channel. Here we discuss tips, tools, and techniques to make sure that you become an effective group facilitator, one in which our group members will make life-changing shifts. So, one of the questions that are often asked in our group workshops is, well, what do I do when a controversial topic is raised? And when I ask normally, well, what do you normally do? A lot of people say we close down the conversation, we try to move on. Sometimes we say at our clinic, we're not allowed to discuss sexuality or belief or religion or politics within groups, and we shut down the conversation and move on. In the interactive group model, however, we say that nothing is off the table. And there are two reasons for that. First of all, that our groups are a mini society. It's one of the principles that we keep in mind. In other words, things that happen outside, topics that are happening in the world at that time are impacting all of us, whether we like it or not. And so the group forms a mini society. And often the controversial topics that are being dealt with either in the media and there's conversations and debate, people will bring that into the group space. So because the group is a mini society, it's going to reflect what's happening in society at that moment. Then you might say to me, yes, Louise, but even if that's true, why do we even need to go there? This is a therapy space. But the other principle that we follow is to understand that in our group, if we can resolve the matter, or if we can come to a place where we don't necessarily agree, or even agree to disagree, because that's often a very quick cop out and it leaves people unsatisfied, but come to a place where we can see eye to eye. We have created a mini society that has resolved one of the controversial things in the world. And if we have enough mini societies that can come to resolve or come to a oneness or a wholeness around these controversial issues, we are really healing society at large. And so we don't want to stop that because this creates an ideal sacred moment where people can meet each other eye to eye. So I wanted to highlight today, first, just one little bit I want to read from this book called The Bond by Lynn McTaggart. I hope I've pronounced it correctly. A fascinating book, and I think in one of the upcoming YouTube videos, I will share a little bit more what's in the group, but it is fascinating. However, I want to focus on just this one little bit for today, and it's on page 158. The chapter is about seeing the whole. So forgive me, but I'm going to read this a little bit. It says, it's about being able to live with paradoxes. In other words, that we can hold both sides of the conversation or the polarities, and we don't need to make necessarily a decision, but we can hold both of it. So we know at present it is a very controversial topic around the Palestinians and Gaza and Israel and what's happening there at the moment. And so I want to read this little bit around that. So one Palestinian and one Israeli each wrote their own abbreviated version of the establishment of the land of Israel. The Palestinian narrative, called The Disaster, referred to the establishment of Israel as a great tragedy. Entire villages were destroyed and land and property were confiscated, with hundreds of thousands of Palestinians becoming refugees. Over the night, the Palestinians became a majority in their own homeland. The Israelis' narrative, on the other hand, entitled Independence, marked the fulfillment of the Jews' historical right to establish a state in the Promised Land. Nevertheless, despite the UN's partition plan, which declared Israel a state, from the dawn of its foundation, the Jews were beleaguered from all sides. The Arab nations attacked the Jewish nation, but the Jews bravely expelled the British mandate, and since then, the Jewish nation has been fighting for its mere existence. And then the punchline, the tragedy, the reason for the enduring conflict is that both stories are essentially true. So I want you to understand that when we are busy having a conversation in a group and it is a controversial topic and people feeling very passionate and very strong about it, it's that both hold truth. For that person, it is their truth and it is upheld and it is something they're passionate about. It says, when we notice the whole, we allow for and respect more than one version of reality. And so it does mean that when a controversial topic is raised, it's important to go and sit and find out, what does this narrative mean for the individual people in the group? So even though the controversial issue is around Palestinians and Israelis, what's important to remember is that in this group, whoever chooses or feels very strongly about one side, it comes from an individual personal story inside of them. And that is what we want to hear. We want to hear, why is it so important for you in this debate to be on the Israeli side? Or why for you is it so important in this debate to be pro-Palestinian? Because then we can hear each other's stories and then we can start to engage and dialogue and talk to each other about it. So once you have a controversial topic arise, take a deep breath, take a step back, and start trying to find out, what is the personal story about. So because it's been so controversial, it's also been arisen, this topic has arisen in two of the groups that I facilitated. In the one group, the group came to a resolve, which doesn't always have to happen, and they decided both sides have done things that they are not in support of. And as a group, they want to take a stance for being humanitarian. They want to take a stance for humanity. And so not looking at either or, but having a resolve of, what is the most human thing in a situation like this to do? And that we as a group stand for humanism and for humanity. The second group that I facilitated created much more controversial discussion. And at the end of the day, when we came to the story, the one person shared with the other and said, you know what? I come from an era where we come from struggle. My parents have struggled in the apartheid era, and I am pro-Palestinian because they have been oppressed. And the discussion between the pro-Israeli and the pro-Palestinian, the pro-Israeli Palestinian asked the pro-Israeli, if you are pro-oppressor, I wonder if this was 20 years back or 30 years back, sorry, would you have been pro-apartheid and oppressed me? Can you see how the story has become so individual and how the one person is using the story to explain something within themselves? And it was a beautiful conversation. And very honestly, the pro-Israeli said, to be honest, I don't know. I wish I could have told you. But that honesty and that humanity was able to connect and build a bridge between the two people, because we really came to the crux of the matter. So don't be afraid of difficult conversations. This is not going to happen every time in your group, but when they come up, allow the space. So quickly, let's recap. Allow the space for controversial things to arise in the group. Don't shut them down. That can cause more harm for cohesion. Second of all, try and unpack what is each person's individual story around that, for people to hear the stories and to be okay with different versions. And also that the group doesn't necessarily have to choose sides between the two, but can we hold this paradox? Can both stories be true? And then to find a bridge, a way that we can either make sense of this or we can reach out to each other and build a bridge around our humanity, our wholeness, our sameness. Is there any way that that can be created without letting go our very individual story? All right, I hope that gives you clear guidelines. Big thing is remain calm. There is a way through this, and the group in its wisdom will often be able to find a resolution. You don't have to come up with that. The group will know what to do with it. You are there to facilitate the process and to trust the process. All right, this is a little bit of a longer YouTube video, but I think it is very valuable and covers all controversial issues. So next time a controversial issue comes up, I hope you're going to feel confident. Take a breath and happy facilitating.